Okay, so welcome everyone for the inaugural Sight Day, Ask the Chair session on celebrating the spirit of Sight volunteerism. I'm Veeraraghavan. I am the global chair for Sight Steering Committee, and very thrilled to launch the IEEE Sight Day, the first ever inaugural Sight Day this year on April 28, 2020. The core vision of the Sight Day is to celebrate the spirit of Sight volunteerism and to create public awareness about the impactful work done by the Sight volunteers globally. So with that said, next slide. Um, the way the session will be arranged today is we'll talk about take a quick snapshot of where we stand, Sight as a program, and then I will provide a holistic view about the reasoning behind why we are launching the Sight Day. And then we'll be looking into some program metrics, how Sight has been a successful program for the last year, and we'll be talking specifically about what are the additional measures we are taking considering the corona situation across the globe. And finally, I'll be discussing some best practices, how to write the winning proposal in terms of Sight. So that's the agendas for today's Off the Chair session, and we'll reserve the probably 20 minutes or a little more than that as a Q&A, allowing participants to directly seek clarifications and ask any questions pertaining to Sight. Now, looking at Sight today, we have about 7,500 members in about 104 countries. Again, some of the statistics shown here are purely between January to April, I would say. And we have about 156 Sight groups in 52 countries. And we just completed our first round of call for proposal reviews, and we should be hearing back on the outcomes. But nevertheless, last year we funded 21 projects, and we received about 74 proposals, funding up to 134K totally, supporting various global proposals. So the summary here is, Sight has been, has been on an amazing growth pattern um, over the last few years. But particularly last year, it was a record-breaking growth across the board in terms of membership development, number of site groups formulated, number of projects supported, number of additional or new initiatives introduced. I think the bar was set really high. Even though this year we have a challenging situation, the committee, along with volunteers like you all, we are pretty confident that we'll be, putting up a very strong and successful progress in 2020 as well. So with that said, the primary form of engagement for our volunteers involved, engaging in, site-related projects, outreach activities, highlighting their impactful work in monthly newsletters, our social media, platforms, and of course now we also have launched skill development standpoint. We have launched educational content in ILN network, where you will be able to leverage some of the courses that are being collectively delivered between HAC and site educational committees to to strengthen the skills of our volunteers in driving projects, particularly in the sustainable development space. So with that said, we'll go on to the next slide. So I would like to talk a little bit more about the inaugural Sight Day, right? So I've been a long-serving site volunteer over 6 to 7 years right now. My journey followed as a volunteer at grassroots level, and then I spearheaded the projects committee. I served as a reviewer, and then eventually the projects committee chair. Now I'm spearheading the site committee. One of the things I always wanted to do for Sight as a program is to actually bring together all the people globally and create this, foster this, spirit of community ownership, right? I mean, we are all belonging to the same network, like-mindedness, working for the same, cause. So that actually was the primary motivating factor, which motivated me to take, Sight Day as one of the key deliverables that I was committed, particularly along with my leadership team, my steering committee team members. We wanted to launch and make it as a platform for years to come to promote, the impactful work done by our volunteers at grassroots level, and also to celebrate, recognize, and inspire the next generation of leaders as well. So that's fundamentally the reason why we created the site day. Primarily, there are four objectives to it. As I called out, the first objective is to promote the spirit of community, right? I mean, we are all part of the global site network. We are leveraging our technical skills and solving some of the most complex challenges. So we wanted to provide a forum for people to share their story. In a nutshell, Site Day is all about not us, but it's all about the volunteers. It's your story, the impacts you have created, the partnerships that you have fostered, and the amazing transformation that you have spearheaded in terms of converting the local challenges into opportunities of innovation. We wanted to hear your story, celebrate your story, and make that story to be, a pathfinder to inspire the next generation set of leaders for site as a program. And of course, we wanted to create public visibility, not only within IEEE, but also outside of IEEE, like, other major players, to show how IEEE members coming from diversified, technical backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, are joining hands to solve the most pressing problem faced by, the local and the global, uh, humanity, And thirdly, last year, as you all know, we institutionalized the Site Fund with IEEE Foundation. The idea there is to, raise external funding to provide additional support to drive site-related projects. So we want to leverage Site Day as well as a potential opportunity to attract potential investors or donors to invest on our program to support the great work done by our volunteers. And of course, everything comes under the the primary umbrella of celebrating the impact of your work, the volunteer works and the site groups work holistically. So that's where this led to the launching and the genesis of the site day. And there are multiple active activities that's been done throughout the world. I'm very excited to see the kind of response we are getting from our volunteers in spite of this difficult, challenging, health related situation. It's panels, webinars, ask the chair session, site quiz challenge, share your site story, video compilation, and new HAC and site educational courses on IEEE Learning Network. So there is a plenty of things that are happening right now. In fact, this morning I was also on a call, a panel hosted by the Bangladesh session, where we had more than 80 students and volunteers attending the session. So it's amazing. And in Egypt, we know like there's a major hackathon that's happening. So across the world, there is so many stories that's happening as I speak today. So my kudos to all the volunteers who have been the pillar of site as a program, because without you, site success and growth is not complete. So really looking forward in the next week or two to hear all the stories from you all and hear your thoughts about how effective the site day was in bringing all of us together virtually, demonstrate that we are part of the same single family, working together to solve the same pressing challenges, humanitarian challenges, using technological innovations. So with that said, happy site day to everyone. And now we move on to the second segment of the session today. Juliana, can we go on to the next slide? Okay, so here is a quick glimpse of what we have achieved so far. The site as a program has delivered a record-breaking performance in 2019 since its inception. Some of the highlights here, as you could see here, is in terms of membership development, we went about from 4,800 to all the way up to 10,645 members at the end of December. Of course, when IEEE members don't renew their membership, the membership can come down a little bit. That's why you are seeing about 7,500. But still, it's a pretty high number this year, and I'm very confident that we will surpass the current bar what we have established.
And we also had approved around 31 new site groups in 15 countries, bringing it to 148. And in the first slide, you already saw like we are right now close to 156. So we did approved 8 more new groups early this year. And we received about 74 proposals, and then 21 were approved. And we hosted 7 webinars last year, attracting close to 140 participants, focusing on topics, unique topics, covering, a breadth and width of, I would say, like how to design sustainable development projects, how to measure them, and so on. We also launched some of the newer initiatives last year, and one of that is the Ask the Chair session, where we'll provide an opportunity for any site volunteers across the globe to directly interface with the site leadership and get guidance on topics related to site as a program. And we also institutionalized the site fund with the foundation. And another key highlight is we established a great working partnership with the several IEEE societies. In fact, we had about 5 pilot initiatives last year, and we were involved in conversation with more than 10 plus societies and programs together. It was an amazing win last year, and we are continuing to engage with our partners this year as well to strengthen and expand our collaboration. And of course, we launched the site awards, recognizing the best site group and volunteers. And finally, we had a specific focus area on Africa Summit, where the idea is to foster and strengthen the grassroots levels in Africa. So that's what I mean. So we had such a great year in 2019, and of course in 2020 we would like to match our performance or even beat our performance, hopefully this year. So next slide. So you can see here, clearly the success what we have achieved show the value proposition that we are offering to our members. We spoke about, the webinars, the workshops. The goal there is to actually, provide the professional skill development, avenues to professionally help to train our volunteers, specifically in designing and driving sustainable development projects. And also the project funding is to ensure that they have a platform in order to transform to their ideas into real world projects by partnering with local communities and helping them to deliver impactful work on the ground. And certainly, this also site as a as a platform, now offers more networking opportunities for the member, both professionally, as well as to find in terms of mentors, or to find mentees as well. And end of the day, this all comes to the larger purpose, the greater purpose, right? I mean, how can I contribute to the advancement of humanity using my technical skill, right? So clearly, our performance in 2019 is basically fitting into the various bins of benefits that's been called out here. Next slide. So site is truly a global organization, and you can actually see, the next few slides you will be seeing about like the stories or the pictures that were shared to us by several site groups across the globe. And you can actually see here pictures from Uganda side, Ecuador, UK, Ireland, Bangladesh, and so on. Next slide. So again, this is all about celebrating your journey, and we wanted to make sure that we take a moment to recognize your talent, your gift of time to the site as a program, and to see what else we can bring in to the program that can benefit you, holistically as a team. Next slide. So these are again some of the other pictures showing up what are the other workshops we offered last year. We had a great partnership with HKN, and we had a great in-person workshop in the Student Leadership Conference in Boston. And we also had a very productive conference in Power Africa in Nigeria, where HAC chair and myself, we visited the local volunteers, and we spoke about how we could roll out great projects locally, understanding the needs of the local community. So overall, this has been a fantastic journey for us. The last 2 years, we have been able to closely understand and closely work with volunteers like you all, and understand the pulse of your need. And we have been trying to constantly improve the program by rolling out newer initiatives. So we'll love to hear from you as well. If there are additionally more initiatives that we can introduce that will benefit you all. Certainly, I think my leadership, along with my leadership team, we are very much open to gather those feedbacks as well. So next slide. Um, so again, one of the key initiatives that's going on right now, which we'll shortly see about what we are doing in 2020 as well, is we would like to strengthen our partnership both within IEEE and outside of IEEE. In 2019, we formally started institutionalizing our partnership with the several societies actually. To call out few societies here: MTTS, IAS, APS, and in addition to that, we also started conversation with WIE, YP, HKN, and so on. So this year, we are literally looking forward to strengthen the existing partnership as well as to expand and attract other societies as well to onboard and successfully collaborate with them to roll out some joint programs in 2020. Next slide. These are again some of our partnership. I mean, we also would like to thank our partners, across all the piloting societies like MTTS, IAS, and HKN, and so on. Because like one end, we have our own weakness in terms of limited presence in region 1 to region 6. I think the partners have been playing a great role in letting us to roll out the joint programs, which is potentially attracting more IEEE members, especially in those regions where we have limited presence. So this has been a phenomenal win-to-win strategy across the board, both for site as well as for the societies. So we really wanted to thank our partners and the societies as well to believing in sight and for closely partnering with us in 2019 and beyond. Next slide. Okay, so we spoke about what we have done in 2019. Let's talk about what we plan to do in 2020. This is the steering committee for 2020. As you can see, like we have several world-class leaders who have gracefully agreed to share their expertise and their time to strengthen site and roll out several meaningful programs. I'm really thankful to every candidate here. And in addition to this, we also have two more new working groups as well this year: Women Insight and then Africa Initiatives. Women Insight is led by Dr. Celia from Bangladesh, and Africa Initiative is led by Lavanga from Uganda section. So again, huge round of applause and thanks to all the volunteer leaders sitting in the steering committee, as well as to all the volunteer leaders out there, driving the site initiatives and the site groups. So definitely, kudos to you all, and you are all the pillar of these programs. We really appreciate that. Next slide. So as far as 2020 is concerned, these are some of our priorities that we would like to share today. One is, as I called out earlier, if a site is truly needs to be like integrated into IEEE, then we need to partner and strengthen our partnership with societies and with all other programs in IEEE. And I mean, we also need to think think big and out of box here. So we are also exploring at an earlier stage right now potential partnership with industries and other key leaders, especially in the sustainable development space. So I'm hoping that we'll, in addition to our partnership within IEEE units, we may be rolling out additional partnership with industries and potential leaders in the sustainable development space. And one more area that we would like to focus this year is we had a record number of site groups created last year, and also we attracted and inducted a record number of members as well. So the challenge or the goal right now is to ensure we provide continuous opportunities to sustain the interest of the site members as well as the groups. At the same time, accelerate our efforts to create new site groups in countries like Australia, China, where we have limited presence today. Okay, so that will be another major focus area that we'll be investing on. And thirdly, we will continue to deliver educational content through probably webinars or virtual summits, or even through curriculum content in ILN, to strengthen our site volunteers' professional skill and provide them an opportunity to engage in real world projects. And one of the other key areas we would like to focus this year is also to roll out meaningful educational content on assessment. Especially, it's important to train our volunteers not only to drive a project, but also to understand what are the key KPIs or metrics that needs to be accounted in order to successfully drive a site project. And of course, rolling out site day has been has been a great one of the committed deliverable. We wanted to do it, and we are glad that we are able to launch that today. And in addition to this, we would like to also strengthen our fundraising efforts, so that potentially we can support more site groups or site projects across the globe. So these are our major priorities in 2020, and you'll be hearing more from us in the next few months. Either we'll be rolling out newer initiatives, or we'll be like supporting, strengthening, taking additional measures to strengthen existing initiatives as well. Next slide. So with that said, the next 10 or 15 minutes, I would like to specifically spend on what are we doing with respect to the current situation because of Corona. So HAC and SIGHT as partnered together, and we are actually making a special call or proposal related to COVID-19. The proposals can be submitted through June 1st. So the idea behind this special call is that, given that our volunteers cannot, roll out any feet on the ground initiative, we really wanted to make sure that they continue to have an opportunity in terms of designing a prototype, or applying their system designing thinking capabilities to formulate solutions which can then potentially be implemented post the corona situation. So with that said, this has received an excellent response from our volunteers. We have so far approved 8 proposals and funded up to 30K, 30K US dollars, so far, encouraging this kind of initiative. And we also expedited the proposal review and approval timeframe for these projects, with being less than close to a week. So again, if you are have any ideas right now where which could serve the needs of your local community, can be like creating data visualization tools, or creating mask, or even a ventilator design of some sort, this is the right opportunity for you to apply and leverage this opportunity for driving your initiative. So I will highly encourage all the participants today on the call to take a look at this special call for proposal and see what you can do virtually along with your team, in terms of leveraging your technical skills, at the same time addressing the needs of your local community given the current global crisis. So with that said, let's talk about what are the important factors that we consider when we evaluate a proposal. So the next few slides I want to touch up that area so that at least it can provide some guidance to you. So typically, a successful site project, we look for 4 key pillars in your proposal. One is the engagement of a community, a clear identification of the community needs and the stakeholders, right? Who are the stakeholders from the community? And of course, if there's any partnership, like you partner with a local NGO or a local student branch or so, it adds a lot of credibility to your proposal. And the most important thing is, um, the mapping between how you transform the needs of the community into a proper technology development plan. In other words, if you are an expert in certain area, for example, artificial intelligence or so on, the goal has to be bottom up, right? I mean, here you need to talk about like this is the community need. That's why I find this technology to be more relevant to solve this problem. And then we henceforth we are applying this, right? It has to be backward driven from the needs of the community. And finally, we look from the standpoint of impact assessment and sustainability. Like how do you measure the success of your program? What are the metrics you are considering, right? And what is your plan? Is there's a plan for this project to continue once the site fund is completed, right? So I would say these are the six major key areas we typically look into when we evaluate a proposal: community engagement, partnership, a well-defined project plan, and a budget, reasonable budget. And of course, site will not fund salaries and gifts, as many of you know about it. So make sure that you have a solid plan in place. You clearly call out why your initiative is needed, what are the existing low-cost market solution, why this is needed, or how it is different, and a clear KPI and sustainable plan. Next slide. So if you look here, again, typically, sometimes what we people, based on our experience, what we have seen here is volunteers are very, very like motivated, and they really jump onto the technical aspect of it, and they forgot to explain about why we are doing this, in the first place. So when you write your proposal, I think like the first thing is define your community needs clearly. And then I would say, like, think about which technology is suitable to meet this community needs. And then think about what exists today. Maybe like it's an already existing technology that you wanted to leverage, and weigh in the pros and cons, right? I mean, do you really need to develop a new technology, or can you, localize an existing solution and leverage it, right? So, and again, data has to be your fourth pillar, I would say. So always rely on the data rather than going by anecdotal stories. Look into data, what exists data, what form of data exists, and see how you could leverage the data to justify your design or your proposal, your basis for your proposal. The most important thing is be agile, right? I mean, fail fast and make sure that you have a continuous involvement with your community, just to make sure that you are not seeing any surprises when you complete the project. And apply IEEE code of ethics at every stage. I mean, is there any negative implication of your, if your project, right? If so, make sure you are very transparent about it, and you take, you put mitigation measures in place in order to handle that kind of risk actually, right? And the most important thing is document every aspect of your development, right? I mean, end-to-end standpoint, what was your goal, where you started, have you really delivered what you thought you were planning to deliver as part of the program? So it's very important to have a clear-cut documentation. So these are some guidelines typically, we will look for your, your narrative in your proposal, which will come handy when you write the proposal. And next slide. And some of the key points specifically again here is, when you interact with your local community, understand what are the other stakeholders involved, right? For example, if you say like you are creating a ventilator project based to deal with the local corona situation, right? Typically, like this comes under probably medical devices, and there are like local regulations or laws in place, right? It's not that I can, I'm really a good engineer, I can design a ventilator and I can take it to for deployment. It's not the case. And second thing is, always try to see, cross validate your assumption by partnering with an expert to the relevant domain. In this case, maybe a partnership with a doctor or a local hospital, or even an NGO who has been involved in providing ventilator could also help you, right? So understand this kind of dependencies, and then make sure what is really the pressing need. There is always a perception versus reality, right? Sometimes we may think like the need of the hour is maybe like we already have enough ventilator, but maybe the need of the hour is creating enough PPE equipment, right? I mean PPE mask and stuff like that, right? So make sure that you understand the needs and you prioritize the needs of the local community. That will help you to stage your project as well. What you can deliver in 6 months versus what can be delivered later, as part of your program. Next slide. Okay, so again, we will be sharing the slides to you all as well today. So these are the expectations of a project reviewer, like how well the project fits into, the site funding requirement. Do you really have a community in place? Do you have a buy-in from the community? Have you identified partnership? What is the exact boundary between your contribution versus your, partnership contribution? And then one area that we have always seen, like people try to, inflate budget. So that's something like, if it takes only like 50, if your project is targeted only for 50 household and say for $3,000, absolutely fine. I mean, you don't need to say like it's going to cover 1 million people and then you're asking for $5,000, right? So be as specific as possible when it comes to, what is your potential impact. And always I would say like do a risk analysis on your program. The risk analysis can be like technological risk, adaptation risk, execution risk. You may lose some of your volunteers as well, right? So there is a pestle analysis framework that's provided in a toolkit. So that will come handy to you. And the most important thing is what is the metrics? How do you measure the success of your project, right? And finally, I would say like once you have delivered your project, what are the next steps? Who is going to take ownership to continue this project, right? So that's where the sustainability comes into play, whether the non-profit or the local community is prepared to continue your effort after you deliver your program. So these are some of the expectations of the reviewer as we closely review your proposal. um, Next slide. So the last slide talks about what to avoid. Avoid generic or open-ended objectives, saying like, hey, this project will solve all problems faced by certain community, for example, farmers, students, and we will cover at least 1 million people, right? I mean, those are like, it's very hard to demonstrate the value proposition for your proposal. An ambiguous goal, for example, you may have like multiple ideas. So I would encourage you to cherry pick one idea for a proposal. You don't need to mix a proposal where you're talking about water scarcity, then you're also talking about, giving an outreach for education, and then you're also talking about you are going to conduct some kind of hackathon, right? So basically, be focused and ensure that your proposal cherry picks the topmost significant problem that needs to be addressed for your community. And then sometimes, people say they have partnership with local community or even like local NGOs, but there is no evidence for that. So if you have supporting materials or websites that we can take a look into, provide them as part of your proposal. And then the most important thing is research projects. Sometimes people forget about the community. They just come and say, hey, this is a research project. Like, I come with a very solid background of having more than 100 plus research papers published. So without the community engagement, they will purely put up a research proposal or even like commercial projects where companies will can say that we are going to fund somebody else to develop the technology. So that actually goes against the fundamental philosophy of site projects, which are purely, backward or community driven, community based driven, and it's all always like bottom up approach. And again, budget is again as much as try to be very particular with your ask in terms of your budget line items. Don't, I mean, in some of the cases, we have seen like people seeing miscellaneous and then putting a X dollar amount. I mean, miscellaneous is not quantifiable. It's pretty hard for the reviewers. So these are red flags, and try to be as specific as possible. And then risk mitigation, right? I mean, what are the major risks? I mean, as I called out, the risk can be is very simple, can be a technological risk, execution risk, compliance risk, or adaptation risk, right? Think about it and what kind of measures you can take, right? I mean, that will provide a higher confidence for your proposal. And finally, they expect you to actually provide the metrics, because without metrics, you can't measure the, success of your program or your proposal. So make sure you clearly call out, the number of people impacted or number of volunteers involved. What additional metrics is, I mean, number of potential outcomes and outputs, right? I mean, that needs to be clearly called out in your proposal. And again, if you have a sustainability plan, then a brief description about how this plan can be institutionalized. Next slide. So I think with that said, the goal here is, as part of this site day, we truly recognize and thank you all for the amazing work what you guys have been doing for us on the ground. And again, as the site global chair, I'm here to serve you all. So my mission is to make sure we hear you, we help you out with the newer programs and support you so that you can be successful, and we are able to deliver effectively our vision and mission at grassroots level. So I would highly encourage you all, to take a look into the special call for proposal and make the best, use of. And at the same time, if there are other areas where we could help you out, reach out to us. We are really looking forward to support our volunteers on the ground. So with that said, I'm going to stop here. I would like to also take this opportunity to thank Juliana, our staff lead, for being a fabulous staff lead, and as well as HAC, leadership, the committee, and the staff member team as well, for their continuous support towards the site program. So I'll stop here and I will open the floor to take question and answers from the participants.
Hey, Sampa. So while we're waiting for those who are here in our live session to ask their questions either in the chat area or in the question and answer area, perhaps you can start with the questions that we received ahead of time. And I'll go ahead and ask those.
Sounds good, Juliana.
Okay, so for starting a site group in a student branch, is it necessary to have any professional member as an advisor?
Yeah, great question. The fundamental reason why we encourage to have an advisor is that, see, sometimes people graduate, and especially the student branch one, we would like to have the continuity. So I think typically we need the 6 IEEE members to start with it. But I think for the student branch, I think we expect them to identify an advisor. In that way, we can basically de-risk. It's not like the first year you're active and the second year the group becomes dormant. So having an advisor will really be like critical for the success of the student branch. Yeah, we would definitely encourage to have a advisor for the site group, for the student branch site group.
Okay, and then the next question is, could site conduct a webinar series on digital health with a focus on preventing and treating pandemics like COVID-19?
Great question. This is already on discussion. In fact, I had a detailed call with one of the active members in Kerala yesterday. You can expect some form of additional webinars we'll be offering. In fact, there has been a lot of discussion going on internally, and we hope to have a series of virtual summits as well planned in the next few months, given that there's limited opportunity for people to meet in person. So certainly there are a lot of plans right now, and digital health is one of the topics we are highly considering as well.
Okay, wonderful. So at this point in time, I don't see any questions. If anyone on the line has a question for Sampath, either about the site program, submitting a site project proposal, the COVID-19 call for proposals, please feel free to go ahead and ask your question at this point in time.
One area, while I wait for additional questions, one area we would like to definitely call out here is, uh, I think this is definitely a challenging time across the world, but I feel like this also provides a lot of opportunity, like how IEEE members can leverage programs like HAC and SIGHT not only to strengthen the skills, but also to come creatively with the innovations to solve key challenges like the one we are facing right now. So I would say, like, if you have a great project or an idea that you wanted to share, apply for funding, or even if you have a story, send it to us. We would love to, promote that in our social media as well as in our newsletters as well. So
Okay, so I do see a question that's been submitted by Prakash. Perhaps, Prakash, you could provide some additional clarity here. The question is, I'm sure SIGHT will take regular projects, including COVID-19 proposals.
great question, Prakash. So let me answer that. So right now, Prakash, what we have done is, at least for the next cycle, I mean, we are supposed to have the call for site call for the next second round of proposal, and even for HAC. So what we have decided right now is we are going to extend the special call for proposal right now, because right now the focus is to support mostly virtual projects at this point. I mean, we don't want to put our volunteers on the ground because their safety and is the paramount importance to us. But with that said, yes, there is a plan. We are going to reassess the situation in June, and if things looks good, we expect to take the regular proposals as well. But at least until June, I would say, like, the plan of record right now is to mainly support the special call for proposal. And the second off is when I think when situation improves, we'll be supporting the regular form of feet on the ground initiatives.
Great, thank you, Sampath.
Any additional questions?
Yes. Is there any possibility of SIGHT funding for projects already implemented?
Like, it's pretty hard to answer until we understand the nature of the project, right? I mean, there are two ways to look at it, right? Let me take a step back here, and let me probably, like, give the response little different here. So if you already implemented the project and you are trying to scale up the project, for example, like, say you already have developed some technology and you have already successfully implemented in a community. Now you have identified 5 more similar community, and you're also thinking that you are going to bring on board local site volunteers. Then there is an opportunity, it can fit the site model. But then if it's not going to involve the local community or the site volunteers, then it's not going to fit under the requirements of a site project. So again, the bottom line here is, depends on whether you are looking to scale up. If so, what are the additional community, or and how you plan to engage the site volunteers as well. Because today's site supports 3 categories of projects: new technology development, existing technology deployment, and the third one is policy related. Of course, if you already have the technology, then the idea here is to localize it, based on the nature of the newer community or additional local community, and then showing the value how this project is going to provide the opportunity for professionally support the skill development of site volunteers on the ground.
Wonderful, thank you. So in terms of funding an already implemented project, that could be include sustaining a project that has already been funded.
Joy, can you repeat the question? Sorry, voice was breaking a little bit. Some problem with my hair.
Yeah, I think this is more of a comment. It just says, for the possibility of site funding for already implemented projects, then it could be sustaining projects that have already been started.
Well, that's what I said, right? I mean, unless we look into the the proposal, it's pretty hard to give a generic answer. But the bottom line is here. I mean, nevertheless, any proposal you are bringing in, either you demonstrate. I mean, the bottom line is you have to demonstrate value proportion here, right? And the value proportion here is how are you addressing the needs of the community? How are you engaging the site volunteers? And making sure that the proposal is in align with the financial requirements of site as a program. As long as it meets that, I don't see a reason why it cannot be submitted. So I would highly encourage the author to look into the site proposal requirements, and then if they satisfy their requirements, definitely it will be a good fit. But I believe we already have a decision tree, as well available in our website as part of the toolkit. Maybe if you can take a look at it, that will also help you to see whether your proposal will fit site project requirements or not.
Thank you, Sampath. Okay, if anyone else has any questions, you can go ahead and put them either in the chat section or in the question and answer section. Sampath, I don't see anything else at this time.
Okay, so again, with that said, thank you all everyone for for joining us this morning. And again, wish you all a happy site day. We are very thrilled to launch a site day. This is an historic moment for site as a program. And again, if you have additional questions or if you need additional support for your site, affinity groups, write to us. We are here to serve you all. So with that said, please stay safe, and looking forward in a few months, for all of us to get our feet on the ground, initiatives rolling out. But until then, from both from HAC and site, we will ensure that we will provide opportunities to continue engaging our members through the special call for proposals and additional avenues like webinars and then educational contents to continue supporting you all. So with that said, thank you all again for joining us today. And if there are additional questions, feel free to write to us. We'll be happy to take it offline.
Thank you, Sampath, so much for sharing this session today. And to everyone on the phone, as Sampath mentioned earlier, we'll be sharing the slides from the presentation and then also a link to the recording of this session so that you can share that with others in your site group or your IEEE section, or even colleagues outside of IEEE who may be interested in learning more. Thank you, everyone.